Women love this more than money, the truth most men ignore. Have you ever wondered why some men have everything: money, status, a big house, yet the woman they love still feels distant, still feels unhappy, still feels unloved? And then there are men who don't have much, but their woman looks at them with trust, with softness, with a kind of love money can't buy. Why? Because there is something women love more than money. Something deeper, something rare, something that most men never learn. Today, we talk about that. There was a man named Arham. He worked hard, earned well, and provided everything. A comfortable home, a good life. All the material things a woman should appreciate. But his wife, Mira, slowly stopped smiling. She wasn't angry. She wasn't complaining. She just wasn't present. Arham didn't understand. Did I not give enough? He wondered. Am I failing as a provider? Do I need more money? More success? But the truth was something else. One evening, Arham asked softly, Mira, what's wrong? You seem far away. She looked down, gathering courage. And then she said the sentence that changes every man who truly listens. I don't need more money. I need more you. Arham froze. Not because he didn't care, but because he never knew that a woman's deepest needs are rarely material. You see, a woman can survive without luxury, but she cannot survive without emotional connection. She can compromise on lifestyle, but not on how she feels in that lifestyle. This is where most men make the mistake. They give things, but not themselves. Mira didn't want expensive gifts. She wanted presence. She wanted emotional safety. She wanted a partner, not just a provider. Because women love something far more valuable than money. Consistency, presence, loyalty, emotional stability, respect, the feeling that she matters. These are the currencies of the heart, and they are worth more than diamonds. Stoic insight. The Stoic said, people remember how you make them feel, not what you give them. Marcus Aurelius wrote that true value lies in character and virtue, not wealth or possessions. A woman's heart responds to your calmness, your confidence, your emotional leadership, your stability, your honesty, not your bank balance. Money can impress for a moment. Character impresses for a lifetime. Arham sat in silence that night. Mira's words echoed in his mind. I don't need more money. I need more you. For the first time, he realized all his efforts to provide were only half the picture. He had been building a life, but not a connection. The next morning, he decided to try something different. Not a gift, not a gesture of wealth, just presence. He poured a cup of tea for Mira and sat across from her. No distractions, no phone, no work, just time. Mira, tell me how you feel, he said quietly. She hesitated, but slowly, the dam of unspoken emotions began to break. I feel unseen, she whispered. I feel like I'm living in a house full of things, but I'm lonely. Arham's heart sank. He had thought providing security was enough, but he hadn't realized security without connection feels empty. Women crave more than money. They crave attention that truly sees them, validation that their feelings matter, emotional safety, calm, understanding, patience, consistency, small, steady acts of love every day, shared moments that say, you are important to me. Money can buy comfort, but it cannot buy presence, trust, or emotional safety. Love is not a transaction. It is a daily practice, a constant, quiet investment in someone's heart. The Stoic said, it is not the man who has little, but he who desires more, that is poor. In relationships, true wealth is patience, listening, being there even when it's inconvenient, being steady when life shakes her world. Arham now knew being a man of character, calmness, and presence is far more valuable than any paycheck. But the real test was coming. Could he consistently show presence and loyalty when life gets busy, stressful, and chaotic? Or would he fall back into the trap of thinking money solves everything? Life doesn't slow down. Bills pile up. Work gets stressful. Responsibilities weigh heavy. And in the middle of it all, love can feel easy to neglect. Arham felt it. He wanted to be present for Mira, but deadlines, calls, and pressure kept pulling him away. It was the ultimate test. Could he show up when it was hardest? One evening, Mira looked at him quietly. Her eyes weren't angry, but they carried a quiet sadness. "Arham," she said softly, "I need you, even when life is busy." Those words cut deeper than any critique ever could. Not because she demanded, but because they reminded him presence is not optional. It is the backbone of love. The Stoic lesson Marcus Aurelius taught. Waste no more time arguing what a good man should be. Be one. Arham realized being a good partner isn't about grand gestures when convenient. It's about showing up consistently, even when tired, even when stressed, even when no one is watching. Because love isn't built in the easy moments. It's forged in the moments we don't feel like giving. Arham started small. A 10-minute conversation after dinner, fully attentive, asking Mira about her day, and really listening. Holding her hand, not because it was expected, but because he wanted to connect. Every small act became a thread weaving their hearts closer. Mira noticed. She smiled more. She laughed more. She began to trust him not for what he provided, but for who he was. And slowly, Arham understood the truth every Stoic man must learn. Money can impress for a moment. Character, presence, and loyalty impress for a lifetime. There comes a moment in every relationship when silence speaks louder than words. When a woman doesn't complain, but her eyes tell a story of what she feels, but never says. Arham began to notice these silent moments. The way Mira paused before speaking. The way she held back her emotions, afraid to bother him. The way she smiled, but not fully. He realized something powerful. Women don't always express their deepest needs with words. They express them with subtle signs that only a present heart can understand. One night, sitting beside her, Arham gently asked, "Mira, what is the one thing you wish I understood about you?" She hesitated. Her voice low, her eyes soft. "I wish you understood that I need emotional closeness more than anything. Not big gestures, just the feeling that I'm not alone in this life." And that was the truth men often overlook. Women rarely say it directly, but they crave three things deeply. One, reassurance. Not every day, but on the days their heart feels heavy. A reminder, I'm with you. 2, effort. Not perfection, not expensive surprises, just effort that proves you matter. 3, emotional presence. Listening without judgment. Understanding without interrupting. Holding space for her feelings without trying to fix everything. These are not weaknesses. These are emotional languages, and every woman speaks them, whether she says it or not. Stoic reflection Epictetus taught. We have 2 ears and 1 mouth, so we may listen twice as much as we speak. Arham learned this deeply. He stopped trying to solve every problem. He stopped rushing explanations. He stopped defending himself. Instead, he listened, patiently, calmly, fully, and slowly. Mira opened up in ways she never had before. Her voice became softer, her eyes warmer, her heart safer. Because when a woman feels emotionally understood, she loves without holding back. Man cannot give emotional safety if he cannot control his own emotions. This was the lesson life was about to teach Arham. For weeks, he had been trying harder, listening, understanding, showing presence, and things were improving, slowly, beautifully. But one evening, after a long, exhausting day, he came home irritated, drained, frustrated. Mira asked a simple question, "Are you okay?" But Arham snapped. A short reply, a tense tone. Nothing harsh, but enough to make her retreat into silence. And in that moment, Arham realized something painful. Even small moments of anger can create deep cracks in a woman's heart. He sat alone later that night, thinking, why did I react like that? Why did I let stress speak louder than love? The truth was hard to accept. He hadn't mastered his emotions. He had been behaving reactively, not consciously. And a woman can feel it. A woman knows when a man is not in control of himself. And when she senses emotional instability, she cannot fully relax into love. She cannot feel safe. Because emotional safety isn't created by what a man says. It's created by the energy he brings into the room. Stoic insight. Epictetus said, "You cannot control external events, but you can always control your response." This became Arham's turning point. He began practicing small, powerful habits. Pause before reacting. He took a breath before answering anything emotional. Respond. Don't explode. Even when stressed, he chose calm over chaos. Separate work stress from home energy. He realized Mira deserves his best energy, not what's left after the world drains him. Own his mistakes. The next morning, he held Mira's hand and said, "I'm sorry. You didn't deserve my frustration." And something magical happened. Her eyes softened, her heart opened again. Because women don't expect perfect men, they expect accountable men. Slowly, Arham became the kind of man who doesn't raise his voice, doesn't use harsh words, doesn't let anger poison connection. His calmness became her peace. His stability became her comfort. His emotional control became her feeling of safety. And Mira fell deeper in love, not because of what he gave her, but because of who he was becoming. Every relationship faces a moment that shakes the soul, a moment that tests the strength of love, the depth of trust, and the stability you've worked so hard to build. For Arham and Mira, that moment arrived unexpectedly. One evening, Mira received a message on her phone, a long message, from someone Arham didn't know, a name he had never seen before. He noticed the way her expression changed, the way her eyes softened with sadness, and the way she quickly locked the screen, as if protecting her heart. Arham didn't get angry, but something inside him tightened. A quiet fear, the fear every man feels when he senses his partner is hurting, and he doesn't know why. He waited for the right moment. Then, in a calm voice, he asked, "Mira, is everything okay? You seemed shaken." She looked at him for a long moment, her eyes glistening, her breath trembling, as if she had been holding something inside for too long. "Arham," she whispered, "it's from someone from my past, someone who hurt me." And seeing the message brought everything back. Arham felt two emotions at once, relief that it wasn't betrayal, and pain for her pain. But he knew this was a test, not of Mira's loyalty, but of his emotional stability. A lesser man would question, a reactive man would accuse, but a stoic man listens. So he said softly, "You don't have to hide anything from me. I'm here. Talk to me when you're ready." And in that moment, Mira broke down. Not because she was weak, but because she finally felt safe. She told him everything: her past, her wounds, the betrayal she faced long before she ever met him. And Arham realized something powerful. Sometimes a woman shuts down, not because of you, but because of a wound that existed before you. Stoic reflection. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "Everything we hear is an opinion, not a fact. Everything we see is a perspective, not the truth." Arham reminded himself, her pain is not a threat. Her past is not a competition. Her fear is not a judgment of his worth. So he chose calmness over jealousy, understanding over insecurity, presence over suspicion. And Mira felt something she had never felt before. A man who didn't punish her for her past, but protected her from it. When a woman opens up about her past, she isn't asking for advice. She isn't asking for solutions. She is asking for one thing: will you stay, even when you see the parts of me that aren't perfect? And now, this was Arham's test. After Mira shared everything, her fears returned. Not because she didn't trust Arham, but because she feared losing him. For days, she became quieter, more careful with her words, more distant with her emotions. Not because she didn't love him, but because vulnerability is exhausting. Opening old wounds hurts more than people realize. One night, Arham found her standing on the balcony, lost in her thoughts, eyes heavy with memories. He stepped beside her, silent for a moment, then said softly, "Mira, why do I feel like you're pulling away again?" She looked down, unable to hide her tears. "Because I'm scared," she whispered. "Scared that one day you'll think I'm too complicated, too emotional, too damaged." Her voice cracked. "I'm scared you'll leave, like others did." Arham felt her fear like a knife. Not because she doubted him, but because life had taught her not to trust happiness too easily. He gently held her hand and said, "Mira, I didn't choose you because you were perfect. I chose you because you were real. And real people have scars." Her tears finally fell. Not out of pain, but out of relief. Stoic reflection. The Stoics believed, a strong man does not only endure his own storms, he becomes shelter for others. In that moment, Arham chose to be her shelter. Not by fixing her past, not by erasing her memories, but by standing beside her, without flinching. Because a woman doesn't need a man who solves her wounds. She needs a man who doesn't run away when he sees them. Day by day, her walls softened. Not because Arham pushed her, but because he stayed, with calmness, with patience, with emotional steadiness. And as her trust grew, something beautiful happened. She began opening her heart, not just out of fear, but out of love. For the first time, Mira felt, this man isn't just in my life. He is with me in every sense. Every relationship, no matter how strong, faces one moment. A moment where love feels fragile, words feel heavy, and silence becomes dangerous. For Arham and Mira, that moment arrived quietly. Not with a fight, not with anger, but with a simple misunderstanding. The kind that breaks more relationships than betrayal ever does. One evening, Arham came home tired, lost in thoughts. He barely spoke. His answers were short, distant, not because of Mira, but because his mind was drowning in stress work, pressure, expectations. Mira noticed instantly. She waited. She tried to talk. She even smiled gently, hoping to lighten his heart. But Arham, wrapped in his own problems, missed her subtle attempts. His silence felt like rejection. And for a woman recovering from old wounds, silence is never just silence. It feels like distance. It feels like slipping away. Later that night, Mira sat alone on the bed, her hands trembling softly. She whispered to herself, maybe he's tired of me. Maybe I'm becoming too much again. Her mind, shaped by past hurt, began creating storms that didn't exist. At the same time, Arham sat in the living room, his head in his hands, thinking, I just need a moment to breathe. I don't want to burden her with my problems. Two people, under the same roof, both in pain, both wanting closeness, but drifting because neither spoke. This is how distance begins, not with betrayal, but with unspoken emotions and assumptions that feel real. Finally, Mira gathered the courage to speak. She walked to Arham, voice trembling. Arham, if you're tired of me, just tell me. Don't leave me guessing. Arham looked up, shocked. Tired of you? Mira, I'm tired of life, not of you. In that moment, everything became clear. The misunderstanding was not born from truth, but from fear. Fear of losing each other. Fear of repeating the past. Stoic insight. The Stoics taught, do not suffer imagined troubles. Most emotional pain comes not from reality, but from the stories our minds create in fear. Arham took Mira's hands gently. He said, when I'm quiet, it doesn't mean I'm leaving. It means I'm fighting my own battles, and I need you with me, not against yourself. Mira felt her chest loosen, tears softening. She realized his silence was not distance. It was exhaustion, and Arham realized her reaction wasn't insecurity. It was trauma. They held each other, not because the problem was big, but because the love was. Because sometimes the strongest relationships are tested by the smallest moments. Every relationship reaches a moment where both people realize love is not something you feel. Love is something you build. Slowly, daily, deliberately. After the misunderstanding, Arham and Mira stood at a crossroads. They could let fear create distance, or they could choose to grow from it. They chose growth. The next morning, Arham woke up with a clear heart. He didn't wait for the day to get better. He chose to make it better. He sat beside Mira, gently touched her hand, and said, Mira, I want us to understand each other better. Not just when things are easy, but especially when things are hard. Her eyes softened. That one sentence felt like a warm light entering a cold room. Because every woman wants to know that her man doesn't just love her, he chooses her. Even in difficulty, Arham continued speaking with calm honesty. When I go silent, it's not you. It's me trying to protect you from my stress. But I realize silence hurts more than honesty. So from now on, I will share. Even when it's hard. Mira's voice trembled as she replied, and I promise, I won't assume the worst. I'll ask. I'll trust your heart. And just like that, the misunderstanding turned into a bridge. That evening, something magical happened. Something deeper than romance. Something more intimate than words. They talked. Really talked. Not about problems, but about feelings. Not about blame, but about understanding. Mira told him her fears. Arham shared his stress. And for the first time in a long time, they communicated like two souls instead of two wounded hearts. This is emotional intimacy. Not candlelight dinners, not expensive dates, but raw truth shared with tenderness. Stoic Reflections Seneca wrote, wherever there is a human being, there is an opportunity for kindness. Arham discovered, kindness in relationships isn't grand gestures. It's small, consistent acts. Listening without defensiveness, speaking without hurting, pausing before reacting, reassuring before she fears. And Mira discovered, trust isn't the absence of fear. Trust is choosing love. Even when fear whispers old stories, their bond grew deeper. Their hearts grew softer. And something beautiful happened. They began seeing each other not as perfect partners, but as imperfect humans trying their best. And that is where real love grows. Sometimes, life brings us back to the same place where everything began, but this time, we are no longer the same person. Arham and Ayesha both realize one truth. Love doesn't fail. Expectations do. The distance that grew between them wasn't created by anger, and not by harsh words either. It happened because both of them were silently tired. Tired in ways they never expressed. And when a person becomes tired, they don't want arguments. They want peace. One day, Ayesha finally said, "We didn't lose each other because of lack of love. We lost each other because we didn't speak our hearts." Arham quietly replied, "And we didn't listen either." They both decided something powerful this time. They wouldn't try to fix the relationship. This time, they would fix themselves. Stoicism teaches, if you cannot control the situation, control the person you see in the mirror. Arham learned that peace isn't found outside. It grows from within. Ayesha learned that love only stays strong when both people are emotionally present. And the most important lesson? Sometimes, letting go is also an act of love. They didn't walk away with anger. No bitterness, no blame, just silence, a soft smile, and one final sentence. "Thank you for teaching me what even life couldn't teach." And the story doesn't end here because the real ending always happens inside a person, not in the relationship. Never blame anyone. Never give someone else the key to your peace. And never chase what isn't meant for you. Because true wisdom says, what truly belongs to you will never need to be chased. If this message brought you value, consider subscribing for more Stoic wisdom and meaningful stories.